So hi everyone, welcome to another TMLS workshop talk. We have Marcelo Litovsky as our speaker for this session. Marcelo Litovsky is an experienced information technology professional with 30 years of diverse background in enterprise architecture, AI, systems and database management, and programming. He has worked in multiple industries, financial services, entertainment, and information technology in his career. Today, he serves as Director of Sales Engineering at Aporia, bringing his expertise to help data scientists, machine learning engineers, and business users work together to unlock and promote the business value of their machine learning models. You can find him at the gym preparing healthy vegan meals when he's not talking to customers or writing Python code. In this talk, he will be talking about the missing piece of MLOps. Stage is yours. You are muted, Marcelo. It shows you're still muted. Oh, it's fine now.
It's Perfect. Fine now. Can you guys hear me?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Anita, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining me today. Whatever you are in the world, good afternoon, good evening. So just gonna give you a little background about myself, so that way you get an understanding of why I'm presenting this subject. I've been in MLOps since somebody decided to coin the term MLOps, and that's not too long ago. That's maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And working with customers and different organizations, I went through the process of helping customers implement models in production. So that was the goal when we started working on MLOps, just get some model into production. And what it meant is having the work of the data scientist transition through that MLOps pipeline without a hitch, looking at scaling training, scaling the serving, and in conversations, we will talk about model observability, how can you do model drift detection, data drift, concept drift. And the conversation will go, yes, we can do that. And that will be tabled for a later time. So in my experience, observability has been put on the back burner. And I think it is a critical piece of MLOps. And I did send a set of questions, a poll earlier related to this talk. So I got some feedback from everybody. So hopefully through this conversation, we'll be able to understand what is the state of observability within MLOps. Now, in general, what's going on with MLOps? By 2028, organizations are going to spend around $6 billion in MLOps. I took this from an article in VentureBeat. Now, what does that mean to the data scientists, to machine learning engineers? All of a sudden, all this investment in MLOps is going to change the way we operate. Until now, we have transitioned from getting data scientists more involved with the machine learning engineers, with the data engineers, trying to figure out how to work together to deploy a model into production. But with that level of investment, with $6 billion on the line for organizations putting money into MLOps, it's going to bring it's going to impact MLOps practitioners. And when I say MLOps practitioners, I'm thinking about everybody from data scientists, data engineers, machine learning engineers. So there's going to be more scrutiny over spending. So now your activities are going to be watched over in a way. People are going to want to know the value that you bring to the organization. It's no longer something that we do in isolation. It's something that now the whole organization is trying to figure out how to extract value from the investment that they make in MLOps. There is going to be a more direct relationship to business users, to business stakeholders. And, traditionally, we've been looking at monitoring metrics like drift, monitoring performance metrics, recall, NDCG. all these metrics that are relevant to data scientists, but the interest is going to be in relating those metrics to business stakeholders and their key performance indicators. So how do you correlate your model performance to the way they see the business? So there has to be a relationship built between the ML team and the business stakeholders to be able to achieve a level of observability that is meaningful to the organization. There's going to be an increased level of visibility within our organization because now data scientists, more than ever, and machine learning engineers are going to engage with business users. So your visibility as a data scientist, as a machine learning engineer, is going to increase. The work that you're doing, it is definitely going to be scrutinized. And in order to get to a high level of adoption of observability, you need to standardize how do you observe your models in production. Now, observability helps organizations maintain the usability of the models. You know, when you're doing things like retraining the model, you want to make sure that it operates the way you train the model. But like I said, organizations are looking to have a more direct relationship between the performance of that model and their business key performance indicators. So they have to merge together. Now, when we think about model performance in terms of NDCG, precision, recall, business users are looking at their key performance indicators in terms of what's the, even if you're in retail, how are the recommendations working? How is it impacting the business? If you're in healthcare, maybe you're dealing with life-saving measures or disease prevention. If you're in financial, how is the reputation of that organization? Are you doing all you can to prevent fraud? So the key is to merge those technical metrics into metrics that can be translated to the business. Now, I want to get some feedback from you, and I did 3 polls related to the talk. What I wanted to understand is from your point of view, from the data scientist point of view, from the MLE, machine learning engineer point of view, what is the current status of observability? And about 50% of you responded that most of the observability is done through ad hoc scripts and Jupyter notebooks. So this is what we see in the market. Now observability is becoming more visible. So people are starting to realize that doing things ad hoc is no longer sustainable. Some organizations have built a repeatable process that applies to certain models, but it's not adopted widely. But when we look at the work that we have done so far, it's mostly technical and not easily relatable to business. So we're doing a good job retraining models. We're doing a good job monitoring the performance metrics, but we're not yet closing the loop to provide something that is meaningful to business users. Now, that is the intro that I wanted to give about the state of MLOps, the state of observability within MLOps. So the question and what I want to work on with you today is looking at the level of maturity of an organization to achieve a level where observability becomes a critical part of MLOps, but also it becomes something that is usable across the organization. So I'm going to take you through a maturity curve that assigns a value to where you're at in deploying observability in your organization. And what I want to do as part of this presentation is when I'm done explaining how this maturity curve works, I would like us to work together. I'm going to send you a link to a survey, and I'm going to take you through the different components of the survey to assess from the audience that we have today what is the level of maturity in terms of observability. Now, if you look at this curve, and just keep this curve in mind, because when we start working on the survey, on the questions, I would like you to think about where you at on each of those components based on how we talked about this curve. Level 0, which I didn't even bother putting in the survey, is basically you have nothing in place, and it's not possible. If you have a model deployed in production, you're doing something. It is minimal. It is possible that it gives you just a limited amount of metrics, but you are doing something. So as you go up in the curve, I think that most organizations are at the ad hoc level. So everything that you do is done manually. It's a one-time. It has to be corrected for each model type. So it is ad hoc. That's the level that I see most organizations working at when in terms of observability. Now, if you think about this curve and comparing it to something that is familiar to us, like DevOps, when we deploy applications to production, we do something to monitor them. And at the beginning, before there were Jenkins and Circle CI and all these CI/CD tools existed, we wrote scripts. It was ad hoc. It was something that we put in place to monitor the application. That became a more repeatable process, something that now can be reused to deploy different applications. And then when the level of complexity increased, then the tools that we use today to do CI/CD pipelines emerge. CI/CD, Jenkins, Circle CI, GitHub Actions, whatever you call it. This helps you manage the process in a way that is agnostic of your application. And at the end, users want to have visibility on how everything is performing. So when you optimize an infrastructure, then you have a visibility across the organization. So this is similar to what's happened to MLOps, specifically to observability. We're writing scripts, we're doing things ad hoc, we're providing metrics that we understand, data scientists understand, machine learning engineers understand, but it's not a repeatable process yet. Some organizations are beginning to build scripts and build a process, and they stumble into issues when it comes to, well, it's a different model type, it's a different type of data, but they're working on building that repeatable process. The next level will be to do something that is managed, that is simple, that when a model gets deployed to production, you know how is it going to be monitored, regardless of the framework that is running, regardless of where the model is served. And the pinnacle of this curve, the maturity, is when there's full visibility into the model from the business to the data scientist. So everybody knows how the model operates. There is an absolute requirement to implement observability that matches business key performance indicators. They has to be deployed in a way that business users can look at dashboards and reports without having to do additional work. This is something that has to be in place to be able to report on the performance on a problem without additional effort. So as we go through this maturity curve, as we do the exercise later today, and we look at different components, just think about on each of the components where you think your organization is in this curve, going from ad hoc to completely optimized. Business users don't even have to ask a data science for anything. You go into a UI and you get the reports that tell the business users, this is how the model is performing in production, and this is how it impacts the business. So how do you climb that maturity curve? So we'll take a few steps to guide you through the process. The first thing is data management. Now, I've been in IT for a while, and data management is probably the hardest thing to do. Nobody wants to duplicate things. Everybody wants to restrict access. Everybody has the best place to store the data. So data management is critical. So you have to build that foundation for observability. And there's a few things that you need to have in place to be able to provide good quality observability of your models. And keep in mind that this is independent of your models. This is just about the data that you use to build your features, to your serving, and then your serving your predictions and your ground truth if it's available. So saving this data is important. Now, most of you are probably familiar with saving your training and testing data, saving your features, saving your predictions, saving your ground truth. That's, even if you do it ad hoc today, that's where most people are. But I'm adding another layer, which is raw data. And what I call raw data, what Aporia calls raw data, is data that is related to a prediction, but it's not being used as a feature. And this is typical, for example, if you want to do bias and fairness analysis on your data. That data is not going to be a feature, but you might want to do analysis for BNF for a specific gender, a specific race, or you might want to look at the predictions based on a business requirement to look at predictions based on a country or a region of a country. So raw data you have to be able to relate each prediction to data in the organization, to your training data set, to your features, predictions, and ground truth. Now, ground truth is not always available in a timely manner, but if the truth is available, the ground truth is available, then definitely you have an advantage. Somebody just posted a message on the chat that they cannot hear me, so I just want to make sure that the audio is coming up correctly. So give me 1 second. Just want to confirm that you guys can hear me. Otherwise, I'll have to repeat everything I said just now. All right. Well, wait. Anita,
we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Somebody put a message. Maybe they couldn't hear me. All right. So let me continue. I just want to make sure that we're on the right track. All right. The next step, once you have a strong foundation for data management and you progress through the maturity model, you have to set up a process that is model agnostic. And this can only be done if you really have a strong foundation, a strong data management foundation. And what this means is that when you save your training data and you, regardless of what model it is, you have the same process to save the data. If you are saving your features and predictions at runtime, that there is a method, a standard method, independent of the framework that you're using to serve that model, that you can save that data. And it has to be independent of language, framework. And the only way to do that is really to have a strong data foundation for the data that is relevant to each of the predictions that you make. The next step, once you have that strong data foundation, a good model agnostic process, then build something that is repeatable. So you need to have templates to help you onboard new models into your observability platform. Make sure that you have a placeholder where somebody can define what metrics are required, and you have a process that can easily integrate into your MLOps, your CI/CD pipeline. So this is building on your data management. It shouldn't be a challenge to do this if you're serving the data. Because when we talk about model observability, we're not talking about what we started talking at the beginning of MLOps, which is, can I serve n predictions a second? Or can I, how much CPU is a model taken? We're observing the behavior of the model and how the data impacts the results that the model produces. So having something that is repeatable, regardless of the framework, is critical as well. So once you have a technical framework, you have to gather requirements from business stakeholders. So this is how you start building up on a process that it is more relevant to the organization. So yes, you have a model, you tested it against your testing data set, it's performing well in production based on your performance metrics. But what is the business user thinking about that model? How do they see the performance of a model? So establishing that communication, that synergy with business stakeholders is very important. Now, in different organizations, this happens at different levels. The trend that I see today is that data scientists are not so involved in that direct communication with the business, but they are aware of the metrics that they produce and how are they leveraged by the business users. In a lot of cases, it's the MLE, the machine learning engineer, that is closer to the business user. And it's the MLE that is actually bringing all this together to create metrics that are relevant to business stakeholders. So that brings me to building metrics that are relevant to the business. Now, because this is something that from the data scientists have not, if I say the term KPI, a lot of data scientists are not used to building key performance indicators with a business impact. So we have to think about what metrics you need to build and how they impact the business. So for example, if you're in retail and you're making recommendations, what is the, or in insurance, you're deciding if somebody's going to buy insurance or not. Is there a way that you can relate a true positive to a financial benefit or financial detriment? So these are the things that we have to start thinking about, is that those metrics now have to be relevant to the business. So it is a different mindset, but that's how you get up the maturity curve. The more involved the business, the more the business understands what your work means to the organization, the more you are up in there in the maturity curve. So it's all good when you have access to the data and you can see what's going on, but the next step is really to set up event triggers. So when you detect an anomaly, what happens? When something is outside of the norm, what triggers do you, what events do you trigger? And this could be anything. This could be sending an email, Slack message. A lot of people talk about training, triggering retraining. You can just invoke a webhook and trigger retraining. It really doesn't matter, but what you have to have in place is a process that can identify an event that needs to trigger something. And also, it has to be done in a way that you avoid being flooded by alerts. So you have to make sure that you have a way to, for example, evaluate that monitor using data from the past. Look at what happened in the past and see where your thresholds are for monitoring that particular event. So having a strong data foundation is always key to that. So if you have a good data foundation and you can look at the history of the events and the data that fed into your models, then you can tune those triggers, eliminate false alerts, and be able to keep that model up and running with very little effort. Now, at the top of the curve, and I want you to keep in mind as we are going to soon start doing the assessment. At the top of the curve, business users are well aware of the value that your models bring to the organization. They have dashboards and reports that they can easily access to see how the model is operating. No longer you have to spend hours building reports or even doing root cause analysis. How do you evaluate a problem, if you don't have access to the data and to be able to explain what a model is performing the way it is. So when you have easy to access reports, dashboards, and business users are in sync with understanding the value of the model, that's where you reach the top of the maturity curve in terms of observability within MLOps. So I know I see some questions on the chat. I'm going to take a few minutes at the end to talk about specific questions, but just give me a minute to go through the survey, and then we'll open it to QA at the end. We do have time. This is a session that can go a little bit over an hour if we need to. All right, so let's just do a summary. You have to have governance. Once you put models in production, you need to be able to monitor the models and prove the business value of the models. The stakeholders are interested in the model performance, but also how it impacts their KPI. So the quality of your data and how you communicate with business users is critical as well. And then there is a need to evaluate technology to support observability. Up to date, up to now, we'll deal with technologies that help you take a model through a CI/CD pipeline, but looking at something that is standard across the organization with for observability requires a little bit more effort. And definitely you should look into new technologies, open source, commercial technologies that can help you with observability. So before we get into QA, my goal today is to take you through an assessment of the capabilities of your organization in terms of observability. This will give you a kind of score and a list of components of observability that are critical to climbing that maturity curve. And then you can use that assessment. You can take it back, and I will send you, probably by the end of the day tomorrow, I will send you a more comprehensive report. Today we're doing it interactively. You'll be able to see the questions, but I'll send you, if you want to participate, I'll send you a full report based on the scoring that we work together, as well as the individual scoring that you will get from your answers to the survey. So if you want to participate, you want to work with me now, there's 24 questions. I'll guide you through this. You can go to that link. I'm going to post the link into the chat so everybody can actually see it. So give me 1 second. Cut and paste doesn't work for me this year. Okay. All right, cut and paste is not letting me do it here. All right. I'm not sure why I cannot paste it. Let's just, hopefully everybody can go to the link or use a QR code to get to that survey, and I'll take you through that. Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot, for some reason, I cannot type it. I cannot cut and paste into the, let's see. I'm gonna ask a coworker if he can paste it into the chat. All right, so give me a second while we put that on the chat. I'll open the survey, and I'm going to take you through it. Let me share my screen. Just give me 1 second. I have too many windows open. All right, so hopefully everybody has the survey open. Just let me know if you have any problems going through it. I see that people are interested and joining the survey. It's 24 questions. It's going to take us maybe 20 minutes. And let me see, somebody has an issue accessing the survey. So let me show the QR code again. All right, I'm going to leave that for a second on the screen. I thought I had the link had showed up on the chat, but it didn't seem like it had it pasted correctly. So I'll give you guys a minute, less than a minute, to get in there. I'm going to give this a try again, just in case. All right. For whatever reason, cut and paste is not working. All right, so everybody should get it, should have it already if you're going to participate with us. So let me take you through the survey. So please give me your email address so then we can share later the results in a little bit more detail. We had the conversation about how we look at the maturity scale of each of the components. So just going to reiterate what they mean. So ad hoc means that whatever you're doing is manual, whether you are sharing something with business users or having a meeting with business users that is ad hoc and done when needed, then it's ad hoc. If you have a process that is repeatable, like some scripts that you have put in place, that it works for the models that you have today, then you can actually say that it's repeatable. Managed means that everybody in the MLOps organization, data scientists, data engineers, IT, have a process in place that is applicable to most models, but business stakeholders are not really fully in sync. And optimize is when that process, that the business users are aware of that process. Just think about it as you respond, but that's the theme. So if you feel like in the context of that component, you are fully in sync with the business, then you'll be at 4. If not, it's just, this is about your organization. So it's not, I'm not judging how you rate yourself. So the first one is you saving your testing data and training data. So you know that there's a process in place that saves the data, and whenever you need it to do any kind of metrics, is there. I'm going to go through these questions, just answer, and let's move on to the next one. The same thing applies for features that are stored somewhere. You can do metrics calculations. So, where are you with this? It is ad hoc. Is it automated? In this case, some of this saying that I'm optimized might not mean much to the business user, but if the user wants the model to operate correctly and you need to do drift detection, then you need to have a process that is optimized for that. Predictions. Are you storing the predictions and they're readily accessible for you to start building metrics? And the one last question but two more questions about data. Are you able to access your raw data, meaning data in the organization that relates to a prediction, but that you're not using when you're serving the model? So this is where you want to start looking at segmenting your data and evaluating model performance in a different way. So how is your maturity in terms of accessing that raw data? And the same thing with ground truth. Now, ground truth is special because not every model will be conducive to getting ground truth in a timely manner. I have customers that ground truth comes 2 years later. Some use cases it's like weeks, but the only point is to have a process that is ready to receive the ground truth and be able to actively use it for performance reporting. So now we get into how that framework is established. Do you have a process that is model agnostic? And this all builds into that data foundation. Regardless of the model type, if it's written in R, Spark ML, or Python, you have something that is agnostic of that framework. Agnostic of the model type. Sorry, I jumped to the next question by mistake. So model agnostic means is it multi-label, multi-class? binary regression. So regardless of that model, your process is repeatable, it works, or is ad hoc, or is really fully optimized for any model. And then regardless of your training or serving framework or programming language or libraries that you use, you can apply the same observability framework. Now, I hope that this is taking you through that maturity curve, and the intention of the survey is to see how you build that foundation and how in each of the steps of building that foundation is what is the level of maturity of the organization. The next step is event management. So what you have in place and how does it work? How does it reach are business users aware of the events that occur? So you have something in place, or it's ad hoc to trigger an event based on an anomaly that you detected. Root cause analysis. Problems will happen. Performance is going to degrade. A wrong decision is going to be made. How easily is for a business user, for a data scientist, for the ML engineer to do root cause analysis, to say that you detected drift and then go down all the way to the feature or features that drifted and trying to understand why those predictions trigger an anomaly. So root cause analysis is very important because you need to explain why a decision was made, and then if it's degrading, you should have an easy way to communicate to business users as well. What happened, why the model did what it did. The next thing is a single view of all your models in production, and we're not talking about MLflow or any of the other tools that allow you to have a model repository. We're talking about a health view. We're talking about a dashboard that a user can go in. This is something that is optimized with role-based access control, because a lot of organizations are very worried about what you have access to in the organization. So do you have a single view of all the health of all the models that is accessible and protected by role-based access control? So somebody should go to the screen, see the health of their models, be able to navigate from there to make sure that everything is operating the way they expect, both data scientists and business users. The next step on this maturity curve, so you can monitor new models quickly with the standards that you have in place. So whenever you put a model in production, you actually can plug in observability, and all the required data to do that is already built into the pipeline, how you're going to access that data. Event triggers by anomalies are managed. So this is make sure that you do have something in place to trigger events, but also make sure that those events are meaningful, that you don't overwhelm a user with receiving too many alerts or miss-trigger retraining many times. So you have something that is manageable, that is automated. And when I say automated, I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to train them all and deploy to production, but there is a process that will trigger something, a flow that will say, do you want to retrain them all? I mean, I don't think anybody's just going to let a process retrain them all and send it to production on its own. But how mature is this process in your organization? Dashboards for model and performance metrics. So you have a set of dashboards that technical users and business users can evaluate the model performance. So right now, I see most people have Jupyter notebooks that export to a PDF. Some turn that Jupyter notebook into a script that generates a PDF and it's repeatable. But the maturity goes all the way to a self-serving dashboard for a business user that can see, how the model is impacting the predictions are impacting the business right now. Timely detection of performance degradation. So how do you detect degradation in the performance today? Is it something that you do ad hoc, just run a report, or you have something you can repeat, or is something that is fully optimized to the point that even business users are aware that there's a potential downside to the way the model is performing, and then you can decide together why is that occurring, and decide if you need to retrain or do something else about that model. So it's a timely detection of the performance degradation. Data investigation tools. I think that this question is similar to one that I talked about earlier. You need to be able to look at the data that comes out of a prediction, not just the results of the prediction, but the organization data that relates to that record. So that way you can do a full investigation of what's going on. And this is something that is easily accessible for users, that they can quickly understand why a model is performing in the way they did, or if any anomalies happen, why it happened. Even the ability to do fairness and bias investigations of a model. So investigation tools are critical to having that relationship with the business. And if you're doing it ad hoc today, which is what most people are doing, running some SQL statements, reports here and there, and putting it together, maybe that's where we're at today. But the idea is to be able to provide this easily so you can quickly show why something occurred. Compare two different model versions. Now, this is something that we all want to have. You put a new model in production, you want to make sure that there is an easy way to evaluate that performance of that model with an existing model in production. Maybe even go to the extent of taking data from the past and running it through the new model and visually compare how the model performs. So you need the ability to create that visualization of performance to explain, do you really want to put that model into production? Now, I added explainability. Here, we're not talking about explainability today. We're talking about observability, which there is a difference. Explainability, when I say explainability, data scientists think about Shapley, and how you can evaluate what a model is doing. But there is a component of that you have to keep in mind. How do you explain, how do you provide metrics that explains to the business stakeholder how a model make that decision? Explainability is probably a sector of another session, but I think it's important that you have something in place that you could provide an explanation of how a model performs. The next item is just looking at history. Like I mentioned earlier, comparing a new model to an existing model. You want to evaluate past model performance, so you want to make sure that historical data is available, and you can evaluate how the model performed. I mean, a lot of times, even when you're doing root cause analysis, you want to go back and see how the model performed, how the data drifted. So access to historical data and be able to analyze past performance is critical to understand the overall health and progression of your models as you put new versions of the model. Give me one sec. All right. The next thing is everybody talks about retraining a model. Are you retraining your model proactively? Are you do you have something that lets you know that it's performance degradation and triggers a process of retraining the model? So where is your organization in terms of that? And again, this is not about automating model retraining. It's about alerting you, making you aware, and maybe trigger a process that can help you decide that you can retrain a model or replace it depending on the circumstances. And there's a few more things in this survey. One is data governance for model data. And this is just natural. The organizations, they want to have, every time we talk about accessing data, the question is, who has access to what? And how does a data scientist access data? How is that different from a business user that might have access to PII information? So how do you govern that access to the data to help through the process. The next item is, do you have a health snapshot of all the models? You know, it's just a single dashboard. A business user, a data scientist can go in, a machine learning engineer, I don't want to leave them out, can go in and see a health snapshot of all the models. And remember, this is not that the model is running, but all the metrics that indicate the model is performing correctly, both performance metrics, drift detection, this is a health snapshot of that model. Now we get into business. So can you clearly communicate with business stakeholders how you can help build their KPIs using metrics for your models? So do you have a way to relate what the business KPIs are to some of the metrics that you need to generate from your model? So having that conversation, that handshake between business, data scientist, machine learning engineer to understand what KPIs they need. Then dashboards for business metrics. So this is business metrics that are meaningful to the user. They have a dashboard. This relates to the model performance, and they can clearly access this and provide value to the organization. And the last thing, which is the top of the maturity curve, you can clearly tie the model activity to business impact. So each model is aligned perfectly with an activity that has value and can be quantified by the business. So this allows you to complete that maturity curve. Now, a lot of these things are evolving. There's other components to observability, but in general, a strong data foundation, an independent set of a framework to provide observability independent of the models, it's going to help you and benefit you in building this and climbing up the maturity curve. So I see that I got a few responses. I'm going to give everybody a few seconds just to complete that. And then I have the way Google Forms work, it only allows me to do evaluate each question at a time. I did write a script because I am a nerd, and just gives me an idea of an average based on your responses. So I might show you my Python script to do that. So there's 8 responses. One thing that I want to say, if somebody is listening to the recording of this presentation and they want to do this later, please go ahead. Just that the survey is going to be available until we're done with the conference in Toronto. So I'm going to continue this. Whoever responded so far, we're going to have the results, and I'm going to send you an email later tomorrow, at the end of the day tomorrow, probably the day after in the morning. All right, so I think I have 9 responses, and I am going to tally up, and just so we can, you can see what I did. I'm going to share my PyCharm script. It's not pretty, but then I'll show you the individual responses as well. So if we had to score your responses, based on an average of your responses, 9 people responded. Out of 100, you're about 37, 38%, based on that score that I shared with you. So that's a criteria that I looked at, understanding how you are in the maturity curve. Like I said, I will send you your detailed information. I think I didn't set up the form to send you the information, but I will within the next couple of days. But let's just take a look just to close up the work that we did together. And I appreciate everybody who filled up the survey. So if we looked at the responses, right? So testing and saving data, above 50% is ad hoc. So on this, the first three questions were more about saving and testing data, saving any data, and having access to raw data. So you can see that everybody's about 50% on managing the data. Raw data seems to be a little bit higher. That's interesting. But you know what? It is data that is already part of the organization, so I'm not very surprised. Ground truth, very ad hoc. And yeah, ground truth is a special use case because it doesn't arrive in a timely manner all the time, but I'll let this one slide. But it seems to be ad hoc. Model agnostic, again, you know, it's the pattern here is that, and what I've seen from talking to customers is everybody scores at around 40 to 45%. So the sample for night responses is around 37%, 38 on that maturity scale. So, you know, again, also training agnostic of the framework, everybody's around 55%. Event management, same thing, around 55%. Root cause analysis, I expected this. It's very hard to trace all the data back to the source to see where the problem occur. I appreciate the responses. This is the hardest part probably to troubleshoot the problems. Single view of the models. This is actually not bad. I don't see that many organizations. So 66% is actually not bad, but most organizations don't have a single view of the health of the model. Monitoring quickly, this aligns with what I've seen so far. Is definitely something that people do ad hoc. So, you know, you get a new model, you have to go through the process of onboarding the model. Event triggers and anomalies. Because everybody's doing a lot of things ad hoc, I expected that it's more reactive than proactive. So it's definitely something that we need to improve. Dashboards for performance metrics. So this response is a little bit surprising to me, but it's mixed. If there is not a strong foundation of data, and 55% of you responded that it is ad hoc, it's very difficult to have performance metrics. So my guess is that there is a mix of things that are specific to a model or the models that you have in production that is probably stable for you. But I would say that in general, dashboard performance metrics, I would say it leans more to the ad hoc, but obviously you proved me wrong. This seems to be a little bit more mature than I expected on the dashboard side. Timely detection of performance degradation. Again, if you are doing ad hoc data saving, this matches that outcome. You know, if you're not managing your data, it's not going to be easy to do timely detection. Data investigation, again, related to how you save your data. So it seems to be that 55% of you are consider this ad hoc. Compare model performance. This definitely, it's as I expected. You know, it's not easy to take two models and be able to compare performance with live data. Explainability, that is a tough one. But I think that if you think about saving your data, be able to do root cause analysis, you can definitely improve on explainability, aside from doing Shapley and other explainability metrics, but really explain what the behavior of the model based on the data and your monitoring of the data. Evaluate past model performance, similar. Models are retrained proactively. So this, I expected this a little bit more repeatable, but I guess in general, I'm a little bit surprised, but it's interesting to see this result that you take a little bit more of a reactive action to training. Data governance, this is very hard. I mean, this is a problem on every organization. It's not, some organizations are more mature in terms of managing access to their data. The question is, because observability is a little bit new and uses different tools, there might be a need to understand how the data is managed and how you govern that data. Health snapshots, again, this is not surprising. Business KPIs. Once we get into the questions about business, I expect that it's going to be less maturity. And as you see, it's like all these business questions have the same level of maturity. And what ultimately you do want to tie your model activity to the business impact. So I appreciate everybody that filled up the survey. Like I said, I am going to send you a copy of the survey, and I'm going to just give you what, in general, how you fit within the rest of the people that answered. If you are coming to the conference in person next week, Aporia will be there. We can have this conversation in more detail. I know that this is something that I would do one-on-one with an organization and get more to the bottom of each of these components to get a real answer. But if you're going to be at the conference and you want to chat in more detail about this, please stop by the Aporia booth. If you're watching a recording of this, I will be watching this survey until the end of the conference next week, probably until Friday. If you want to set up an appointment with me to do an assessment in more detail, just shoot me an email and we can sit down and do that together, whether you are in person at the conference tomorrow, or if you just want to do it on a Zoom call, please let me know. I'm available to have this conversation. I think it's important that we consider observability more now than ever because of the scrutiny that the spending on MLOps is going to bring to data scientists and machine learning engineers. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Please put them on the chat. If you please provide your feedback. What do you think about this maturity model for observability? And like I said, if you want to stop by the booth next week and chat in more detail, you're welcome to come see me in Toronto. I'm going to give everybody a few seconds if you have any questions. If not, I hope everybody has a good day. If you're in the US, happy Thanksgiving this weekend. And if you are going to be in Toronto tomorrow, I hope I get to meet you face to face. So Anita, I think we're all set.
Yeah, there's a question. Did you already answer could you elaborate on what proxy values would help?
Oh, so I missed that question. Where is that question? So if I understand, I actually don't see it on my chat.
So the question is, could you elaborate on what proxy values that help understand model decisions are?
Yeah, so you might not have ground truth. And in a lot of use cases, ground truth doesn't arrive in a timely manner. But there are other elements that, let's say you make a prediction on somebody's going to buy something. You can have a secondary or proxy value that says add to cart. So they don't complete that purchase, but they actually, it tells something about the behavior of the model. There are other metrics that you can use to evaluate the performance of the model that we don't like. You can, if you have a framework that is model agnostic, it really doesn't matter that the prediction is actually coming from the model, but that you can assume a prediction based on maybe different thresholds. So the prediction might have some behavior in the real world, but you might create a proxy metric that you can use to calculate precision. Like could be add to cart to calculate precision, even though the purchase was not completed, you might have a different value. Or you can create metrics based on corporate data that that help you understand a pattern of the behavior of the model, but they're not truly lined up with the prediction. And the reason, and I know that we have longer conversations with customers about proxy metrics. When we talk about observability, we're not thinking about how the model operates, how it makes its decisions. We're looking at the data that feeds into the model. What is happening around that model that you can measure. But it is definitely something to think about when you don't have ground truth, or when you want to measure your model with a business KPI that might not be related to exactly a performance metric in the model. You're on mute, Anita.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Oh, that was weird. I just thank you for the great and the amazing talk that you gave. So hopefully we see you next week in person. Thank
you, everyone. You have a good week. Hopefully to see you in person too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.